Moses Moody had a horrific injury against the Mavericks in a game that the Warriors actually won in overtime. But I think after the game was over, the story was just Moody, and it's a torn patellar tendon, which was not something that they were going to necessarily think about as they figure out what this team is going to be next year. I think Moody's a young guy, and it was just assumed that, he was going to be there in the rotation next year. And now that is thrown all out of whack because, according to what I've seen, the injury is probably a year kind of
Mhm.
injury, though, depending on the severity, probably at least 6 to 12 months. So that puts him out quite a bit. And you already have the injury with Jimmy, putting him out for a while. Steph still hasn't played. Porzingis seems to be, every other game. And next year, they're trying to gear towards getting one run again, getting the band back together one last time. And this injury throws it all out of whack. What'd you think of when you saw the injury and heard about the injury? It just seemed really devastating for the team.
I think I was playing MLB The Show with JJ, and he was watching it, and he was just like, "Oh wow, Moses went down," and he just kept getting real time updates of like, "Oh, they're bringing the stretcher out. Oh, it looks bad." So I went back and watched it myself, and I watched the entire OT. And right when it happens, Kalena goes, "That's a patella." Like that's exactly what
Oh,
I had. Like he called it right from the jump. And also interesting, like I've never seen so many during the free throw, the towel guys having to stay on for extended time to wipe the exact area that he fell in a couple plays later. I wonder if like that's gonna be of anything that maybe those courts are just like naturally were they too wet? Like just was there humidity or what caused them to be feel like they were more wet than I've seen from other courts and how often those towel guys were on there. Um, but yeah, no, absolute total bummer. Just like the guy, like the stay ready guy, right? Like throughout his career, just like you're gonna get thrown in at these moments, and you got to sink or swim. And for the most part, Moses has always played well and stayed ready. Finally gets his moment last year to kind of be a consistent starter, and felt like that's where his career was headed. Just like kind of just like a starting level player in the league. And not to put a ceiling on him, but this is just a total bummer for the stay ready guy and the guy who we've been able to just rely on to be available. Not too many injuries in his career. I want to say like this extended absence is probably the most he's ever missed leading up to this game where he came back. Him and Pods, as much as we harp on Pods, guy's been available.
yeah,
So
he
that's a bummer to
plays.
lose one of those reliable ones that's just always plays.
Now we're not gonna, we'll talk a little bit about where they go now, because now I sort of feel like we're back to having to draft another wing, to fill this position. There's a lot of time left, and there hasn't even been any analysis, as far as I could tell, on what to do. It's still really just about him and about his injury. And but before that, I wanted to put some respect on Moses Moody's name because the Warriors drafted him. He's 19 years old, and they win the championship when him and Kuminga are rookies. And just about every single year, his numbers have increased. His points per game have gone from 4.4, second year 4.8, third year 8.1, last year 9.8, this year 12.1, and he's shooting the three-pointer at the highest clip of his career, 40%. 6.3 attempts, 2.5 makes. He's shooting his twos over 50% as well. And he's a solid high 70s free throw shooter. Now, his value is also just in being heady, generally making the right play. Defensively, he's not the most athletic guy, but he does have long arms. He can stay in front of certain types of players. But I think the idea is like that Moses Moody is just some some maybe a prospect who didn't actually become the player that the Warriors wanted him to become. I think he's actually become the type of player that they needed. It's just the other guys who they had drafted to fit those other roles, James Wiseman, Jonathan Kuminga, those were supposed to be the stars. Moody was supposed to be the stay ready guy, like you said. And he actually outperformed both of those guys per what the expectation was. So I don't think people, at least national basketball fans, look at this and go, "Oh, what a blow to the Warriors." I mean, I'm sure they go, "Oh man, this is a crappy injury," but I think this is actually a blow because he's a guy who could start. He's a guy who
The
comes off the
close.
bench, and Kerr just trusts him at such a young age. And now this changes the trajectory because of the athleticism. And actually, when Kalena mentioned his injury, Kalena fell off after he got hurt.
Yeah.
His career was kind of like this up and coming guy who we didn't really expect to be good, and then he was good, then he got hurt, and then his career was not that much longer. Did he say anything about the severity of the injury, or did he just
Yeah, I think
acknowledge
he
what
was
it
trying to
was?
hold back. He acknowledged what it was, but you could tell that, like, he was holding back a little bit. Like, he was like, "Man, I'm gonna start crying right now," because, like, I think, like you were saying, like, I figured that that's what had happened, that, that injury kind of was the beginning of the end for his career, but I think he didn't wanna put that out into the air knowing that Moses is, like, legit laying on the ground right there.
I've had a kneecap injury as well, though I did not tear the or rupture the tendon. I just had the kneecap move and then move back. But that is like the way that your body reacts to stuff like that is kind of crazy. Like it just like panics. Your body's just in panic mode when you have an
Mm,
injury like that. And what does it mean for the rest of this season? The Warriors are still going to be in this play-in game. They're going to be without a valid guy who they turn to when necessary. I mean, not that when he was gone that you missed him a ton, but like when he came back, the presence was there. You're like, okay, Moses is back. We can trust this guy
mhm.
because they have a lot of guys who are playing right now who you're kind of like, I have no idea who this is. Like, who is this guy? And so Moses was almost like the dependable vet in a sense, even though he's only 23. It's
Yeah.
like Moses and Gee and GP and Melton. Like these guys are like, okay, these are my guys because of Steph being out. And who knows what this thing looks like for Porzingis because he is himself is just not dependable to get on the court. So when it comes to kind of the end of this year and next year, I think we're assuming that Moody misses at least a big chunk of next year. Like what do they do? Do they turn to Gee? Like Gee's already getting run. He and Moody are not the same kind of player, but they're also not that dissimilar
Yeah.
on the things that they do well.
Right.
I imagine this is good for Gee to get more minutes, but is this like a Will Richard is not exactly like a Moody, but he kind of can do some of the Moody things. I imagine they're gonna probably look for a Moody-esque player in the draft. How do you think it bodes for the rest of the season and then what they do in the offseason?
I mean, yeah, it's a big blow. Like, that's a starting caliber player for them. Someone who, doesn't need the ball to succeed. He was like the perfect kind of role player who can play alongside Steph and Jimmy. And I know that there's a couple other guys who could do that too, but I think Moses' size and wingspan was just a total plus. So, like, as Will Richard probably has a similar skill set to Moses, like, you're just missing some of those intangibles. And, Moses could guard some of those, more lull you to sleep guards, like even though not to say he's getting stops on Luca or SGA or Jalen Brunson, but though they have put Moses on those guys in the past, and I don't think any like a Will Richard or a Pods can even hold a candle to try to guard those players. So you're missing out on that. You're missing out on Moses also being able to guard up because he's taller and he can. Was his best 3-point shooting season. So you know I don't. We'll see what they do with the draft. I'm not familiar with the players that around the expected spots that they'll be drafting. But I have some friends who do, and I'll check in with them and see what they think. But no, it's a pretty devastating blow. Like, it's if you had to rank like what would be the worst things to happen, like of course Steph, Jimmy, but like Moses is pretty close. Moses is pretty close to the top.
Yeah. So we'll have to figure out what goes on for or what plans that the Warriors have. But you know what? The other thing about like you can't even really think about like Moses knowing Moses is going to be out, like that's a blow. But like figuring how they're going to maneuver around replacing him or finding a similar player, that's like so low on the list because getting Steph back healthy, number one, as always. What are they going to do with Porzingis? Do they re-sign him for next year? And then Steve Kerr coming back? Those are like three questions, So the Steph thing, Steph will be back. We just don't know if he's going to be back this year. He got another setback, not really a setback, but they had wanted him to scrimmage and he didn't scrimmage, and he's not playing against the Nets. So, but the Kerr thing and the Porzingis thing, those feel like giant questions that they need to answer, and then you can kind of deal with the Moody situation after that. So we'll have a busy off season for sure.